Welcome to DT2 Comics Chat Review. Today we'll be reviewing The Flash Season 1, Episode 3, Things You Can't Outrun. The Good. Lots of goodies in this episode. Number one, Barry's motivation is clear, and it's right there in the intro. He wants to find out who killed his mother and get justice for his father. That's perfect. That's a perfect setup for your protagonist because you understand what motivates them to do what they do, and you also understand when their goal is reached, that goal will be clear. So that intro is a perfect setup. I love the villain. I love Kyle Nimbus, the Mist. I love his regular name. I love his code name, the Mist. I love his powers. I love his motivation. He's trying to get back at all the people that put him away, that, thought they were ending his life. I also personally love seeing like crime boss and mafia family type stuff. So I just loved him as a villain throughout this whole episode. He's got the creepy villain look and all that, but still, I really love that. Barry loved being the hero again, and it was clear that he was happy about what he was doing. Love that. Team Flash is again doing what they do best. Well, Cisco and Caitlin, Barry along with Joe. And you see that it's the heart of that dynamic, the Team Flash, the OG Team Flash, that makes the show work. You also see how each character is relevant to the A plot, to the main storyline. Joe's got something to do, Barry's got something to do, Caitlin's got something to do, Wells has something to do, and Cisco has something to do. Their relevance, their necessity, their contribution to the main storyline is front and center and very, very clear. We see more of the backstory with Caitlin and Ronnie. In the comics, they become Firestorm and Killer Frost, but they don't have the relationship like they do in the comics on the show, except on Earth 2, which we don't see until way later. The deal with Killer Frost, at least in the comics, is that she's unable to retain any type of heat, so she has to absorb it from other sources. There are actually 3 Killer Frosts. Crystal Frost was the first Killer Frost in the comics. Caitlin Snow is actually the 3rd. Okay? And Crystal had an accident that changed her, and she was actually in love with Martin Stein. So she was in love with the Martin Stein half of Firestorm, not the Ronnie Raymond part. Okay? Now, the version of Killer Frost that has the constant hunger for heat is the Caitlin Snow version. So she's kind of like a heat vampire. So that kind of fuels her relationship with Firestorm because he's nuclear powered. So he can generate enough heat, that she has to continually absorb. But we don't really necessarily see that on the show on Earth 1. We get to see more insight into what actually happened the night the particle accelerator failed, which was great to watch. Ronnie's sacrifice was extremely brave. Again, I love the slow motion thing when the liquids go up, when they go vertical in slow motion. I love that. You see how the whole thing was falling apart, how everybody reacted to it. We find out later what was going on there, but, just seeing that kind of thing going on and Ronnie doing the things he needed to do to be sure that everybody didn't die, that he sacrificed himself. And Caitlin said, I didn't want him to be a hero. I wanted him to be my husband. Really, really heartfelt, and you can really feel that connection between them. We also see something that was good. We see how more easily Caitlin fits into Barry's life than Iris does. Again, she fits right in. She fits right in at Star Lab. She fits right in at Barry's office. They're working together. Barry obviously does not have to explain the science to her, and she's not making fun of it because it's what she does too. And she opens up to Barry about what life with Ronnie was like. And, Barry's asking her kind of those personal questions, and they ended up embracing. And you can see them beginning to clearly bond. Okay? And you can see all throughout the episode that Caitlin does not want to lose Barry like she lost Ronnie. I mean, that's the obvious parallel that they're drawing. They're not being subtle about that. They're putting that front and center. The Snowberry Force is strong in this one because we're seeing them bond, and Caitlin has already suffered one loss that she doesn't want to repeat. The best line in the whole episode was Joe's line to Barry. that putting on that suit does not make everybody safe. Man, that's a great line. Joe is schooling Barry on the pitfalls of being a hero, about how it's not all glamour. It's not what Barry thinks it is. He's not omnipotent, nor is he omnipresent. He doesn't know everything, he can't do everything, and he can't be everywhere, even with speed powers, which is just a fantastic balance. So even though the Flash is clearly overpowered as a character, speedsters in general are way overpowered. Joe comes in with some proper checks and balances about how even those powers have limits and that Barry shouldn't get cocky about it. I thought that was brilliant. And of course, our little tag at the end where Harrison Wells is once again hiding his secret and spying on the Flash and spying on Team Flash. That's really kind of quite creepy, but that works for the character because we need to see that he's creepy. And that's going to play out as the show develops. Really, really good. A word from our sponsors. Read comics. Your enjoyment of a show is enhanced when you read the original source material. Click on the link below this video to get some outstanding comic recommendations. Now, there are tons of comic winks in this episode, and they're all great. The cinema displayed 2 films on the billboard. One was titled Blue Devil, 2, Hell to Pay, and the other was the Rita Farr story. In the comics, Blue Devil is a stunt performer who got superpowers. He had an accident and he got sealed inside of that Blue Devil stunt suit. And Elastigirl from Doom Patrol, her real name is Rita Farr. She also had an accident and got her elastic powers. Wade Boulevard is a wink to Mark Waid because he had one of the best runs. He's a comics writer, had one of the best runs on The Flash. Mark Waid is the one that took Wally West to greatness. So the greatness that we understand about Wally West's time as the Flash and the Speed Force itself, all that came from Mark Waid's run. So I'll put links to some of those trade paperbacks because you really need to check those out. Barry said he didn't want a museum built in his name. That's a wink to the Flash Museum. Absolutely was built to honor Barry Allen. They even have, a section for his Rogues Gallery. Even Flash's villains have statues in the Flash Museum. Okay, Captain Singh asks for the Orloff case. In the comics, Professor Peter Orloff is a biogeneticist who created the Red Trinity. And that's a group of genetically enhanced individuals that also have super speed. Caitlin's, obvious line about she and Ronnie were like fire and ice, referencing Killer Frost and Firestorm. And the area before the core chamber of the particle accelerator is titled Reactor Area 52. And that's obviously a reference to the new 52. So again, just tons of great things in this episode. The meh, in terms of what was kind of meh, we see the beginning of Iris starting to fangirl about the Flash. And again, she has no interest in Barry's nerd world, okay? She's making a really fast progression on her relationship with Eddie. And Iris and Eddie are lying about their relationship to Joe. Turns out later on that Joe already knows. But there's a couple of things I want to point out here. First thing I want to point out is that her story is not relevant to the main plot. Every other character on the show has some type of tie-in to what's going on with the Mist and the killings, except Iris. Next thing I want to point out is that Iris says that Eddie was her first real boyfriend. She said between her father and Barry, she's really only ever kind of been around them, and Eddie's her first relationship. So that means that Eddie is her first love. Her first love. So they're establishing an even greater bond between the two of them because Iris is never going to forget him. Iris is going to remember him for the rest of her life if he is indeed her first love. But there's another thing I want to point out that's just kind of and that is that Iris is the only character on the show dealing with adolescent issues. Everybody else is trying to figure out what's going on with the Mist, what he is, how he's killing all these people, what his motivations are, how to stop him, how to trap him. And Iris is like, I've made a decision. We're going to do PDA today. I'm going to kiss you in public. to prove how much I really love you. She's dealing with adolescent crap. What is this, like Flash's Creek or something? I don't want to wait. Do. I mean, come on now. She's dealing, I could take that from Clark and Lana because Clark and Lana were still in high school. But everybody on this show is already an adult, even though the young adults, the younger characters. Then obviously we have, some characters in their 40s and 50s, but Iris is dealing with her first real boyfriend and kissing her boyfriend in public, and her whole storyline in the whole show is whether or not we're going to tell my dad that we're dating. And then Joe goes old school cliche with, I'm taking it better because I don't have my gun with me and a whole bunch of stuff. It's so juvenile. She has no purpose. She has no tie-in to the main plot. She is not part of Team Flash. She is not part of the A plot. And she's dealing with adolescent kind of stuff. And when I first saw that, I was like, what in the world? If she was out there doing some journalistic work, she could easily be plugged into what's going on with the myths just by doing some research. Or maybe she had written articles, or maybe she studied other people that did write articles. Because remember, in that first episode, we heard about her dissertation, and we never hear about it again. If she's out there doing groundwork from other places that the mist has struck, gaining some new information, some things we don't know. If she's out there interviewing people that knew the mist or his parents, or there's all kinds of ways she could actually be worked into the storyline doing some type of journalistic or news reporting function. Now, news reporting is much more Linda Park, and Iris is a journalist, but still, just gathering information to write her column could still be relevant to what Team Flash needed to take down the antagonist. But nope! Her story is about PDA and telling her dad and her first boyfriend and a key to his apartment and, oh my goodness, I hope my father doesn't shoot you, and oh my goodness. Just no. The ugly. Now, in terms of what I thought was ugly in this episode, the ugliest thing in this episode is the beginning of the pipeline. Okay, and the reason I put this under ugly is because the concept of the pipeline is awful and deeply illegal. There is no due process given to metahuman villains. They're suffering cruel and unusual punishment. Have you ever been trapped in a small space? That thing is not even as big as a small bedroom, okay? It's not even as big as an efficiency apartment. Have you ever been trapped in a space that small? Do you know what that would do to you psychologically? If you had to just sit in that little small space with, plexiglass or glass, you can see out of it, but you can't get out. And then, there's deleted scenes that show Caitlin feeding them, but, how do they eat and when and how do they go to the bathroom? Because there's no obvious toilet in those cells. So everything about that is cruel and unusual, and it's also vigilante justice. It's Barry and Team Flash deciding on their own that they are going to deal with the metahuman threat the way they see fit. All of that is illegal, and Barry and Joe are cops, and they go along with it. So just in terms of the sheer ethics and the moral choices of both Barry and Joe, both of them are portrayed and painted as better men than that. But to do this kind of thing to the metahuman villains, I can understand the need. I understand the problem, but they could have had Barry go to Oliver and explain the problem, just like Barry in the first episode told Oliver what was going on. And maybe Oliver could have referenced Diggle and Lila, and Argus could have gotten involved or something like that. So I know they want to keep Barry's identity on the low, which I said was a good thing, and it is. But if you're going to be capturing people without due process and holding them, incarcerating them, and basically making them lab rats while you're trying to figure out how to make them tick and take away their powers and all that is just no. That is just morally and ethically repugnant, and I do not like that kind of behavior being condoned and participated in by Barry and Joe. The other thing about this episode is we see the beginning of Barry getting beat up by the villains. I can't stand it. I hate it throughout the whole series. Barry just stands there Okay, he should have had the super speed reflexes to dodge the blows of the mist. Do you know why? Because the previous scene where Barry ran into the mall, we saw him already in flash time. He was running so fast, other people couldn't see him, and he was moving so fast, everybody was standing still. So you can't tell me when the mist takes a swing, he does a right cross or a left hook in normal time, that the Flash wouldn't have the reflexes to dodge that. I can't stand it. That happens to Barry all throughout this show. He gets hit by things that shouldn't be able to touch him after just demonstrating he's moving so fast. Everybody's a statue. I can't stand it. That's very, very ugly on a show about a hero whose power is super speed. So the ways around that is, like if Barry ran into a room and he still knew with his powers and the mist had already filled the room with gas, or, Barry didn't think to do the arm twirl thing, or, something, some kind of way that neutralizes his power, some kind of energy field, or something, but just the mist turning into human form, and he's fast enough to turn into mist when Barry hits him, but the Flash isn't fast enough to dodge the blows, because later on they show the Flash dodging both bullets and lightning, but he can't dodge punches, throwing at normal speed. Just no, I can't stand it. Ugly. All in all, still a great episode. I think this is the best episode so far, honestly. I give it a 9 out of 10. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for Iris, because nothing about her makes any sense, okay? She should be like a side character we see in Joe's life, every now and then, but nothing about her as a featured character makes any sense at all. Otherwise, and, the stuff about Barry not being able to fight the mist back, that's ugly too. So I still give it a 9 out of a 10 because it's still fun to watch. It's still developing deep relationships. And it still makes sense, given the comic book science, the comic book physics of the world we live in, other than Barry not dodging normal speed punches. It's still a great show and still gives you that must-watch feeling every week. And everything about the tag at the end with Harrison Wells makes you not be able to wait for the next episode. So 9 out of 10, highly recommended. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell to know when new videos drop.